extraordinarily conversations with pro and semi-pro Rocket League players grinding toward better things. Today, however, we're taking a look at the mental side of Rocket League, and specifically competitive Rocket League. Mental training and its importance on becoming a better Rocket League player and being a better team in competitive Rocket League. I chat to Geir Isene, who is a mental trainer for a Rocket League team. Why I wanted to talk to you is I was playing, going through my usual grind of trying to get better at Rocket League, and in particular I was playing some 1v1, which is most people have a love-hate or a hate-hate relationship with, and it occurred to me, I thought, technically I'm doing pretty well, and I've become convinced that my struggle to rank up has got something to do with a mental issue. So I was tempted to put out a tweet and say, who's a good mental coach that I can reach out to and book some sessions with? And then I thought, there's got to be people who do this for teams, and I don't know if there's been enough conversations about the mental preparation for high-level competitive esport. So that became the tweet. I was like, who does mental training for high-level Rocket League teams? So to get things kicked off, I'd be very interested to know about you, AW3, and how you came to be doing what you do.
Well, we had to track back to the 90s, I guess, because I was running a recruitment company for 10 years, and that was from 1990 to 2000. And part of our recruitment business was that whenever we failed to recruit the right person in the right place, we had to do the whole recruitment cycle again. So we were very, very adamant that we made sure that the candidates we recruited actually did well in the job. And part of that was not just recruiting the right guy, but also following up and making sure they were actually successful. So I did a lot of coaching, a lot of mental training of executives and people that we hired. And from there came quite a few sports people that wanted to, after their sports career, go into the business side of things. And then I recruited them, and then I got into recruiting more sports people, and then I started coaching physical athletes. Up through the 2000s and 2010s, I did a lot of coaching and mental training for physical athletes, predominantly in cross-country skiing, biathlon, which is skiing, shooting, and then soccer, and then weightlifting, and then orienteering, and then all kinds of sports. It just branched out. So I did mental training for people that went to the Olympics, helping people take gold in the Olympics, for instance. I also branched out to do a lot of mental training and coaching of artists on stage, people that gonna break through in the movie industry in Hollywood or Broadway, or stand on a stage and sing, or do presentation works, or stand-up comedians and all of that. And then after having done the physical athletes for a decade or two, I decided, okay, so mental training is extremely important for even a cross-country skier to be able to manage to get the gold in the Olympics. But the mental aspects is much, much more important in esports, because you don't have the heavy physical aspects of weightlifting and building muscles and all of that, which is an extremely important part of most of the physical sports that I've been coaching and mental training in. But to go into esports would up the percentage of how important the mental aspect is, because if you look at Rocket League, I would say it's about 50-50, which is skill in the game, and then the mental aspect to it is about 50%. So it's crucial for a top Rocket League player not only to be able to keep their composure, but also to be able to reset after an extremely horrible game. If you just make a fool out of yourself, all the skills is lost, and you feel thrashed by the opponent, then how fast can you actually reset? And also, how do you prepare into a game? And how do you play together with a team? And how do you deal with toxic players, in either your teammates or the people around you? And how do you deal with the success if you get the success? How do you deal with social media pressure? And all of that has a lot to do with the mental aspects of the game and outside of the games.
So how did you get into esports and Rocket League?
Yeah.
Off you go.
And And about a year ago, me and my oldest son were talking about this because he is an avid Rocket League player, and we talked about the mental training aspects, etc. And I've been training him since he was about 5 years old in the mental training parts, and doing the drills with him and getting him to focus and all of that. And we said, yeah, let's just move into Rocket League and other esports and see how my regimen, how my methodology on doing mental training for physical athletes would fare in the Rocket League scene and other esports like Counter-Strike and FIFA, etc. So we decided to create a company, and we did, and that was AW3. And we signed a mid-tier team in Norway with 3 Norwegian players, and we took them to the top of the Norwegian scene. We won the Telia Liga, which is Norwegian Championship, 2 seasons in a row now. We thrashed everybody in another tournament in Norway, and then we got to the 4th place in the EMEA Trial Olympics, Tokyo 2021, from a mid-tier, pretty good team, but not the best team. And this has to do not only with mental training, obviously, but we have an excellent in-game coach, Raju, from Lithuania. And we also put in a lot of effort on physical training with these guys and all the stuff that goes around being a good Rocket League player, you know, eating the right things and sleeping enough and all of that. So I do a lot of coaching with these guys, and I help them with everything. If they have girlfriend problems, problems in the family, problems at school, anything, your math assignments, whatever it is, I help them with that too. But the core part is training them on mental exercises. So every single day they're doing mental training, and every week we're having a session 1-to-1 with each of the 3 players and making sure they're doing the exercises right and that they are leveling up on the exercises ladder. We've done this for about a year now with these 3 players, and also with the other players that we have on CSGO and other games that we're engaging in.
All right, well now let's get to the methodology, and you've made a little bit of reference to it. So what is the methodology, and how are you approaching your team? How are you training your team mentally?
Well, then I can reveal that there's only really one skill I have in life, and all the other parts of life people do it better than me, but in one specific area I'm acing it, and that's just one thing, and that is to keep things simple.
Okay.
So I can't complicate stuff. I can't do complex stuff. I do things as simple as possible. And this is what I do in mental training too. So the first thing is to be able to actually have the players do nothing. Almost nobody is training on doing nothing. Everybody's training on doing something. You know, it's mechanical skills, or it's talking to people, or it's picking up girls, or whatever it is in life that you're doing. But the ability to do just fucking nothing is something that people don't train at. So, and the reason why this is important is because in the head of a normal person, there's a lot of stuff going on. You know, there is all these thoughts and emotions and things are coming up, and there is a tune circling around and you can't get rid of it, and then there is this naked ladies coming in, and there's pictures here and there, and it's all kind of a mess in most people's head. And to be able to focus, you must overcome that. There are certain ways you can overcome it. Maybe you can suppress it, but that's like an internal civil war between you creating a lot of thoughts and emotions and then trying to suppress it, which is kind of stupid. So what I'm training people to do is not create the thoughts and emotions in the first place, so you don't have to suppress it. You don't have to disregard it. You just become aware that you are creating your thoughts and emotions, and then you don't create them. And the way to do that is to sit still, shut your eyes, and focus on being here and now and doing nothing. I'm not talking about meditation, you know, focusing on your breath or, you know, the taste in your mouth or anything like that. You're doing nothing. I mean, absolutely fucking nothing. Sitting there, and whenever there is a thought coming, let it just pass. And at one point during this exercise...
So I have a question about that. So what is the direct in-game translation of that skill?
The in-game translation of that skill is that there is no disturbance. There is no internal distractions in your mind that will interfere with your decision-making and your being focused and on point in the game. Because external distractions are obvious. If somebody just pricks you on the shoulder or does something, obviously that will disturb you. But the main thing that disturbs focus is what is inside the person's head already. Thoughts, emotions, anger, sadness. Oh God, I should have, gotten to that ball, or damn, I was a tenth of a second too late. All these thoughts, all these things that's going on in the head are distractions from being here and now and making the right decisions and being focused and on point in the game.
All right, good. So that's the first thing. What comes next?
What comes next is to handle all the external distractions. Because if you remove the internal distractions, that's fine. But how do you deal with the external distractions? Because you can't remove everything that's going around in the universe, like your mother coming and trying to vacuum clean in beside you, or whatever is happening on the lawn if you're playing there. All these external distractions is also something that the person needs to handle. So then we introduce exercises where we try to trigger the person with lots of noise and lots of distractions, and the person is able to still focus, still maintain game on pointness. And that's the next level. And then there is lots of other stuff, like training the person to figure out how he should prepare for a game. That's very individual. How to reset a bad game before you start the next game, and how to deal with anger, how to overcome anger issues, because people get pissed if they lose, like I did. And all of this stuff is something that we exercise and train, and be able to be completely chill and just do the game, and not all these other things like adding anger or fear or sadness or whatever you want to add to the game, which is not productive at all.
Okay, and how much? So if we take how many hours a week would you say your team are practicing in Rocket League, and how much of that time is on these exercises?
6 to 8 hours per day, maybe, of practicing Rocket League, and maybe as much as 15 minutes, half an hour, maybe ish, sometimes,
Okay,
with the mental training aspect. So it's actually quite a small part of it, but you can only train that much each day and still get value out of it. You cannot just do this for 8 hours. That will not improve your game as much as doing 8 hours of Rocket League.
Yes.
So we need to balance it. But let's say if you do 15 minutes per day, you'll be in extremely good shape after a year. You'll be in much better mental shape than all the players you know.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's a surprisingly small proportion of the time, and I don't know what I was expecting, but I certainly wasn't expecting half the time on that. But it makes it quite doable. 15 minutes. Most players can find 15 minutes to kind of exercise, toughen themselves up mentally.
Yeah, but I'll give an extreme example on the other end, though, because about 6 years ago, I found myself struggling with being disappointed or angry when I lost games. I'm not playing Rocket League, by the way. I played Rocket League once and I got thrashed by a 9-year-old. But 6 years ago, I was like, I was looking at, I get so really pissed when I play chess. I play a lot of chess, by the way. I play lots of chess. And I wasn't really good, but I was feeling anger when I lost games. So I thought, okay, I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to play as much chess as to the point where I can lose my anger when I don't feel any anger at all. So I went on playing bullet chess, 1+0, 1 minute games, right? And it took me 3.5 years and 30,000 bullet games to reach the point where I actually lost all emotions, all negative emotions on losing games. And that's about 15,000 losses and 15,000 wins, because I win about 50%, a little more than 15%. And the interesting thing is that when I did this, I stayed at the same ELO rating for 3.5 years. And in the 2 weeks where I lost that anger, lost that emotions, because that happened in just 2 weeks after 3.5 years, my ELO rating shot up during just those 2 weeks, 150 points. I went from about 1500 to 1650. And I did no training at chess. I purposely did not look at any videos. I did not train to be good. I just trained to lose my anger. That was all. Now, so when I lost my anger, it went 1500 up.
is there a difference between losing anger, suppressing anger? Because you don't want to become completely emotionless, right?
Well, you want to become emotionless in the single point where you make a right decision in the game. You don't want to be engaged in emotions when you're doing the right thing in the game. When you're playing the finale and the RLCS, you don't want to have those emotions interfering with you. But you don't want to become emotionless as a human being. So you have to very distinctly separate out being in the game mode, being in the zone, being in the focus of actually being in the finale, and being a human being, which you are outside of the game. So the best you can do when you're in the game is to just do the game, actually be the best you can be. And adding anger and adding fear and adding all of that does not contribute to you winning the game. But outside of the game, all of these emotions contribute to you being a human being, which you want to be. So it's important to be able to feel all these things and feel love and feel anger and feel sadness about the suicide of your bird if he decide to, oh, I don't want to live anymore. All of this is you being a human being, which is important. But inside the game, those 5 or 6 minutes with overtime, you just have to be on point and do the game. You need to play the game, not do emotions and thoughts and all of that. The best esport contenders, the best esport players are better in their game, in their sport, than any physical athlete I've ever seen in any other sport, physical.
And do you think there's a reason for that? Can you identify a reason for that?
Yeah, my theory is this, that the mental aspect of an esport is much bigger, it's much broader, it's much more essential to the game than, let's say, the mental aspect is in weightlifting. Weightlifting is about 1/3 mental, 1/3 technical, and 1/3 strength. So, but in esport, you have 50-50. So you have 50% more mental training or mental aspect to the game than the physical sports.
So is that because you're not having to spend a huge amount of time on that physical strength?
It's a lot more complex to play Rocket League than there is to do weightlifting or go cross-country skiing. I mean, if you go cross-country skiing, there is no decision. There is a track there, and you just follow the track, and you just go, and there's nothing else. But in Rocket League, you have to make multiple decisions per second. You know, where are you going to be? Where are you going to take the boost? Where are you going to be with the ball? Where you talk to the players on your team at the same time? It's a lot of stuff going on every single second. So it's a much more complex game. And also, since you're losing the physical part of this, and you don't need to train your weightlifting or whatever, you can train a lot more in Rocket League than you can in, let's say, weightlifting. The best Rocket League players train double amount of hours per year than the physical sports that I've been engaged in.
So I was asking a question earlier. You got 3 18-year-olds, they're fairly young, they have a bad series. Is there work you're doing with them after that series to kind of analyze things, or how do you approach that loss immediately after?
Well, first of all, I'm a very single-minded person when it comes to doing mental training and coaching. We don't learn a lot from each loss. We learn one thing, just one thing. We focus on learning one thing. What can that game, what is the one single thing we can teach ourselves or learn from that, and we pick out the most important aspect, and then we focus on closing that gap. Because if you try to fix 3 things at the same time, you're going to get confused, you're going to get all kinds of jumbled up in your head. Be single-minded, don't multitask, focus on one thing to learn from every loss that you have.
All right, then let's talk about there are a lot of, I guess we'd call them bubble players who are looking to get to go pro, looking for pro teams, and they're sort of just below that tier and looking to break through. And it can be quite tough because you're sort of sitting at home, often by yourself, trying to figure out your own things. What advice from a mental training point of view would you give a person like that who's going to go through those natural troughs, days where it's fantastic, and then maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of just, I can't get better, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong, and I'm starting to hate the game? What do you tell a guy like that?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, you can engage another person to actually look at your games. Some other very good player. It doesn't actually have to be a player that's much better than you. It can also be one of your friends to just go through the replays and see what you can do. Because when you go through your own replays, which you should also do, you still have this idea that, oh, I did this because blah, blah. You have something to defend. You did the decision, but then you're justifying why you did the decision. And this is a mental loop that is going on. If you have an more objective person looking at your game, he can say, oh, you shouldn't have been there. You should have been there. Why the fuck did you do that? And then the person go, and you try to justify. But it's much easier to sell yourself on the justification that you have than to try to sell the other person the justification that you have. So having an objective person look at your replays is one good thing to do. Okay. Another thing is to go through my 11-point recipe that I have on my blog, which is free to use. You can download everything. Everything is given away for free. And you can go there and you can go through those 11 points and listen to the podcast, read the one-page book I've put up there, and then you will have the idea of what exercises you can do on your own to be able to be more in the zone and more focused. Because there are certain simple exercises, and probably it will take you 1 hour, maybe 2, to go through all those 11 points, and you will be in a much better place mentally than before you did those 11 points. I have a few apprentices that I'm training to become mental trainers. Me myself, I'm completely booked, but my apprentices, they can also be hired for free because they need exercise in how to become mental trainers. So I have a few of those that I can lend out as apprentices, so that if somebody contacts me, I can give them mental training via my apprentices for free. So that's also a possibility.
16-year-old player, 16, 17, also, you know, looking to get better, looking to sort of break into maybe get into a semi-pro scene. And we've covered that a little bit with your 11 points. But are there things like a specific one really bad game which can throw everything off? You can be in a great flow, have a bad game, and then it becomes almost the self-fulfilling dwindling spiral, because you have a bad moment, so you focus on that bad moment, and then you're chasing your game, you're snatching it, you're desperately trying to get that great feeling back, or that sense that you were in control of the game. What does a guy do in that moment?
Well, first of all, you need to not force it. Because when you're in the zone and you're playing fantastic and you have all the confidence in the world, you're not forcing anything. There is no force there. It's just a flow. So trying to get into the flow by force will not work. You have to relax. You have to just put down your shoulders or lay down and just relax. And then, that can be anything. It can be you walking the dog. It can be getting out to get some fresh air. It can be take a cold shower. It can be listen to death metal music. It can be anything that you need to do to reset, but you need to not force it. When you find yourself forcing it or trying so hard to get into the game again, you need to back off, back out of the game, and then do the stuff that you enjoy. Because enjoyment and fun is an extremely important part of this. So you need to sit down and try to figure out a list of 3 to 5 things that you do that you normally would take you from forcing the stuff to getting into the fun part of it. And if you can put down that list, and then when you feel yourself forced or forcing it, you can go, okay, take out my list again, and then do the stuff that you yourself has put down on that list. Walk the dog, eat a little bit, apple or whatever, take a cold shower, listen to Italian disco, get back into the game. So this, how to reset a bad game or a string of games, is very individual. So I work with the players to figure out what they need to do to reset for themselves. And the same goes for preparation for big games. How do you prepare before an important match?
All right, and then let's talk about toxic players, because it's something you touched on very briefly. And it's amazing how a toxic teammate or a toxic opponent can kind of throw you out of the zone, even though you talk to just about any Rocket League player, they'll tell you, just ignore it, it doesn't matter. But most of us struggle with that. How would you suggest you deal with that?
First of all, I train my players to be able to not only tell them to ignore it, I actually sit them down in a chair and then I blast them with toxicity until they are able to sit there and just look at me and have no reaction physically or in their mind. It's just completely calm. So I train them to the point where they can accept it and do not resist it in any way. That's one thing. Another thing is try not to be part of a toxic team. I mean, that's the easiest one. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be engaging. It's supposed to be an enlightening part of life. If you find yourself in a shithole with toxic people, just get out of there. That's the best and easiest thing to do.
What does a typical week look like with your mental training and your players? So what's actually happening on a day-to-day or a week-by-week basis as part of this training?
Well, in the beginning, it was like this. We had our mental training sessions, 3 of the players on Mondays, so a half an hour each. And then I start at 4 o'clock, and from 4 to 4:30, I have one of the players, and 4:30 to 5, and 5 to 5:30. And then I talk about, so how was your last day-by-day exercises? Let's say they did the basic exercises, sitting still, shutting their eyes, and trying to be 100% mentally present without creating thoughts or emotions in their head for 6 minutes straight. And then I ask them, so how did it go? And then they give me a score from 1 to 10. They say on Monday it was 7, then it was 8, then it was 6, then it was 4, and then it was etc. Right? And then they say, okay, so why was it 4 on that day? What happened? Well, my girlfriend was about to break up with me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so how did that make you feel? Blah, blah, blah. And we talk about these things. We talk about every ups and every downs through the week. And they do 6 minutes then every day, plus some other exercises maybe to make up about 15 minutes. And then I assess how they are doing with that. And maybe we will do another week of the same exercise. Maybe I will change it a little bit. Maybe I will just go into a completely new exercise. Right now, they're into an exercise of creating emotions, creating anger, creating fear, creating resentment, creating boredom to be able to actually manifest all these emotions. Because if you can create anger, you're not so affected by anger.
Is there a difference between what you're saying? Because, you play, you have a bad game, you get beaten, you get angry. Is that not creating anger?
It's not creating anger, it's subconsciously creating anger. You should be able to consciously create anger, and that's a whole different scene. Because if you're subconsciously doing a lot of stuff, like subconsciously putting emotions and thoughts in your head and subconsciously creating anger, you're not in charge. You're not in the driver's seat. And if you're not in the driver's seat, you're not driving the game. The game is driving you. So you should be able to create all these emotions, and you should be able to not create those emotions. If you can do this consciously, then you're in the zone. There's all different levels of this, and the 11 points goes through most of these, except there are variations that I put in depending on how they're doing for the past week, and then I tailor the mental training to each of the players. Now I have to say that these guys are the best mental shape I've ever had any person be in. Regardless of sport or artists on stage or executives in a business or whatever, these 3 players I have is the most fabulous mental shape I've ever seen in people that I've trained. But the 11 points will give you at least half a year of tough mental exercises. You will get in a pretty good shape by doing just those.
And then a question that intrigues me is a number of things happen. If you take a 15-year-old, or let's take a 12, 13, 14-year-old who's been grinding Rocket League, and they're a prodigy, they're really, really good, which means as they are at an age where they qualify for top flight competition, which I believe is 15, they're then scooped up by an org, and that team might make it into the RLCS or some other high level competition, and suddenly this 15-year-old goes from being sitting at home in their room, in their little gaming room, playing by themselves on Discord, but now they're exposed to a number of things. They're making money. There's some fame that comes with it. They start getting a lot of followers on Twitter, on Instagram, YouTube, wherever they might be. So it's not just about the game. There's all these other things that are suddenly happening, and if it's a good team, they might have a complement of staff who start to help them with that. But how does one prepare for that? How does this 15-year-old prepare for what comes at them once they get picked up?
Well, usually they don't. They're just thrown into it, and some survive, and some just crumble, and some became more shy, or some, it affects their game in some way, and many just fall off the game. And here we come to a difference between the physical sports like tennis or golf or soccer or whatever, because it's so established that you have all these things around them. You have parents who are engaged, you have trainers who are well trained, you have coaches, you have people around the apparatus around the whole individual is so established in the physical sports. In esports, most parents are just looking at, oh, are you gaming again? Or can't you come out and eat dinner now? What the hell are you doing? Get out. I'm actually confiscating your PC if you don't come out of your room. So there is no respect for esports like there is respect for tennis, which is really, really odd to me. And these professionals, they might even earn more money than they would ever do if they go into tennis. So it's the whole apparatus is very immature. There is not much around them to pick up these aspects that you're talking about, like how do you deal with fame? How do you deal with all the distractions? How do you deal with actually earning money now? It's so immature, the whole gaming scene, the whole esports scene, that what I'm trying to do is to help parents wake up to what this really is, and to make them see it for what it is, and make them take it in a respectful way, and that they have a son who is extremely talented, and they should support him and help him. Just like the top chess players in the world, or the top table tennis players, or whatever it is. So we need to get more respect for esports, and then this cracking through as a 14-year-old will be more prepared than it is today, because now you have all this, esport is a shitty scene. You have all these orgs that are exploiting the young people, not paying them, taking all the prize money. It's all kinds of stuff that is reeking of immaturity in comparison to the physical sports.
In closing, where to from here for you? I mean, are you've mentioned you're training other people. What's that for? What's the plan? Where to from here?
Well, right now our main focus is Rocket League in AW3, and then we have a focus on CSGO. We are moving into FIFA, and we're moving perhaps into Valorant and maybe League of Legends. That depends. We have people approaching us from all kinds of different esports, and we're looking at what we're going to do. We will keep on approaching players and helping everybody, and to be the non-toxic team in the Rocket League game scene, and trying to gain respect for Rocket League, and just pure have fun, which is what this is really all about. Have fun, hook up with cool people like yourself, and then see if we can make a little dent in the universe.